Disclaimer: this video is of humorous nature only. The author does not seek to insult or humiliate anyone. The video may contain profanity. People under the age of 16 should refrain from watching this video. Story 1. A grape. My wife had a friend coworker whose young daughter choked to death in front of her and her mother. They tried to dislodge the grape and nothing worked. By the time an ambulance got there, the girl was brain dead. It's about the worst thing I can imagine as a parent. We were cutting our kids' grapes in half until they were 10 after that happening. Story 2. Hitting your head. RTBI is full of stories about simple slips and falls that resulted in death, at least temporarily, and lasting effects. I simply fell on ice at work. Bam! Unconscious, woke up saying, I was okay. Got talked into getting in an ambulance. Started dying in the ambulance from a severe brain bleed. Coma, expected to die, survived. Lost most of my memory, emotional stability, the ability to easily make new memories, a ton of IQ. Still, in all, I'm not dead. Ed. So many stories. So much loss. So sorry for all your losses. And carry the information to others. I'm so happy that protocols for brain injuries have improved so much. If you hit your head and lose consciousness, get to a hospital stat. Be careful. And wear a damn helmet. Your life is important. Story 3. Rags covered in linseed oil can spontaneously combust when left in a pile. I randomly discovered this fact in a Reddit post titled, "The New Guy Burned Down Our Workshop." A carpenter I know confirmed that this is a real thing. I've been getting into refinishing old furniture, so I'm glad I learned this now. You'd think it'd be more common knowledge. Story 4. People don't realize that a lot of people who die in house fires die in their sleep. The fire is too small to wake them from the heat alone, or it's farther away, yet it is releasing carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, along with a ton of other toxic fumes into the air. You are just sleeping, breathing in that gas, which makes you even more tired and eventually completely unconscious, then dead. Story 5. A high-pressure puncture wound, high-pressure injections. DOPS, www.merckmanuals.com. Cahome Special Subjects, Occupational and Environmental Medicine. High pressure injection. Injuries. Imagine you're wearing all your PPE, got your goggles, your gloves, etc. And you're working with high-pressure liquids. I'm not talking cutting steel with water jets, just something with high enough pressure that can pierce or puncture the skin. And bang, you get a little stab from a pressurized fluid source. Not even bleeding that much, if at all. Sometimes it's just a little sting, but you go to medical and get the assistance, and after a day, your hand is sore but otherwise fine. If you obtain one of these injuries and don't alert the medical staff, you typically lose the limb. It can be just as bad with water steam as with chemicals. This was a safety moment at my company due to a mechanic getting a pinprick while changing a line. While he went for medical help, he didn't tell them it was a high-pressure wound. As such, he progressively lost 3 fingers on his hand because the substances were blasted into muscle tissues and caused necrosis slowly. Story 6. Confined spaces. If it only has one way in and out, especially if it is below ground, there is a very real possibility that there isn't enough oxygen in there to support life. Even something as simple as rusting metal can remove the oxygen from the air, and if there isn't airflow going through the space, the oxygen-depleted air won't be replaced. Other processes can remove oxygen or produce actively toxic gases. This sort of thing often kills more than one person, as the first person to find the victim goes in to rescue them and becomes the second victim. Edit. And, as excellently pointed out by U. Proncrank, if it's just lack of oxygen, you won't notice. You'll just fall unconscious. Too much carbon dioxide is noticed by your body, but lack of oxygen isn't. Story 7. Party buses. My wife's cousin was on one a couple of years ago. They were all dancing on the bus while it was driving on the 101 freeway in LA, and she slipped and fell against the door. The door gave way, and she fell out of the bus at freeway speeds and was immediately run over by a car. There wasn't much left of her, closed casket for sure. She was celebrating her 30th birthday, but instead she died and left behind 5 kids all under 10. Story 8. A cracked toilet. Even if it isn't leaking or doesn't seem like it's a problem, replace it immediately. Do not sit on it. If it breaks while you're doing your business, that crap will slice your legus meat open like a razor. Broken porcelain is no joke, especially when you put all your weight on it. Edit to add, only reason I know was an old post from R Watch People D. Dude didn't die but got seriously deep cuts in the butt leg area. Story 9. Bartender here. I yelled at a new bartender for improvising a recipe with grapefruit juice, told them, that's the one you don't improvise with unless requested. It messes with people's medications. Not sure if it's kill-worthy, but I'm not taking that gamble. Edit. Got it. Kill-worthy. Heard. Tylol. Story 10. For the love of God. When you're boiling water on the stove, turn the handles of your pots inward. My grandmother's sister, when she was a toddler, was running around with her arms in the air and smacked the handle of a pot of boiling water. The water poured all over her and she died a few days later from her injuries. Because of that, all throughout my life it was drilled into me to A. Use the back burners first, and B. If you need to use the front burners, turn the handles in. It wasn't until I became an adult and moved in with roommates that I realized so many people don't think to do that. Story 11. If you see somebody on the ground who has had an accident, don't move them unless you have to. They could have a spinal injury. This is especially true about motorcyclists. Leave their helmet on. That helmet could be the only thing keeping their skull together at that moment. If you remove it, they can die. And for God's sake, if you see someone bleeding profusely and you can't get it to stop, reach for the tourniquet. But also don't take that tourniquet off unless you were a licensed medical practitioner. And write the time. It's not super critical that you write the time, but allows the doctors to know how long the tourniquet's been on, and if they're going to need special practices to filter the blood before they release the tourniquet. Story 12. Former rural or doctor here. Things that I have seen either nearly kill or actually kill someone. 1. Taking a drug at a party, rave concert, etc. Surprise, it's got fentanyl or carfentanil in it. And now you're dead or permanently brain damaged. 2. Sticking your hand, arm, leg, head out a window while the car is driving. This is how you either lose a limb or lose your head if you get in an accident or someone sideswipes you. Keep your body parts in the vehicle. 3. Not vaccinating your kid. Watching kids die or become permanently disabled because of preventable diseases is both the saddest and most infuriating things I've ever dealt with in my career. If you want to rip on me about how much you hate vaccines, STFU, and save it for someone who cares. I'm not interested and I won't entertain your BS. 4. Medications that you should not forget. Your insulin, your asthma medication, your EpiPen, your various heart medications, your blood thinner. I've seen all these missed drugs end up in very serious consequences in the ER. 5. Not knowing the signs and symptoms of a stroke. 6. Drink doing drugs and driving. Also, if you are going to get super drunk, I promise you that the absolute worst place to walk home is along a highway. 7. Looking at your phone and driving. 8. Dropping tools, any item from high places. I've seen this happen once in a construction site, and he lived, but I've heard of those that have not. 9. Operating power tools. Doesn't necessarily kill someone, but it was the #1 reason I was sewing people up or sending them to plastic surgeons. 10. Finally, please don't get up on a ladder without properly securing, stabilizing it, and having someone in the near vicinity to call 911 if you fall off it, instead of finding you several hours later. Story 13. Riding a bike, skateboard, roller skates without a helmet. Your skull is going to crack like an egg when it hits the pavement. Heck, you can die just from falling over standing still. In 20 years of cycling, I've seen so many fools seriously hurt themselves. For me, it doesn't matter if I'm riding 100 miles or 10 feet. If I'm on the bike and it's moving, the helmet goes on. Story 14. A lot of med interactions. Mucinex DM with antidepressants, Tylenol for a hangover. Always look up the potential drug interactions of medications. every time. I've had doctors give me some deadly cocktails because they neglected to check it against the meta I was already taking. It happens more than you'd think. Edit accidentally said just Mucinex instead of Mucinex DM. Thank you to those who corrected me. Story 15. Oleander. Many people forget they're poisonous. Its long, straight branches look ideal for roasting food over a fire. About 20 children die each year in California from this plant. As they roast marshmallows, the sap inside the stick seeps out and into the food. Nyatnur 1. Some folks have asked for clarification on the number of deaths. The number cited was given to me by a doctor of biology, PhD. But it was a while ago. She was infinitely more intelligent than me, and I have no reason to doubt her. That said, I imagine the fatalities vary each year. It is a popular, hardy, ornamental plant found in many backyards. Story 16. Not an accident, but I don't think most people appreciate how deadly knives or other sharp objects can truly be. They get underestimated solely based on the fact that they aren't guns. You don't need to be strong or particularly fast to stab someone to death. There are tiny women who have used kitchen knives to murder 200-pound men. In many cases, you don't need to stab deeply, or even more than once. Less than 1 inch of penetration can be enough to kill somebody. I used to work in a county coroner's office, and we saw a guy whose brother killed him by shoving a small table fork into his heart. To top it off, a victim's raw physical strength won't protect them from an attack. Thinking you can just take the knife away from a determined attacker who rapidly advances on you is pure fantasy. Story 17. My wife and I were at a Cracker Barrel and my wife ordered a salad. She asked for no bacon. She explained to the waiter that it was a bad allergy. Food is delivered and there is bacon on the salad. We send it back and reiterate the health implications. The waiter brings it back and it was clearly the same salad as before but with the bacon scraped off. Some bacon pieces were still in the bottom of the bowl. At this point, I asked for the manager. I explained what happened, what we told his waiter, and then showed him the bacon on the plate that got returned to us. He looked furious, excused himself briefly, and returned with a fresh salad. Assured us he made it himself and to not worry. Then disappeared with the waiter for 5 minutes. I don't know what he said, but the waiter was visibly down the remainder of the evening. My wife winds up spending an entire day puking with an agonizing migraine and severe pain under every joint in her body, after contact with any pork, gelatin and chemical derivatives included. Other people aren't so lucky and go into anaphylaxis. Just don't cross-contaminate food or assume someone is just being picky, you might kill them. Story 18. Pulling up too close to railroad crossings or trying to beat a train. A train consist can derail. Material can come undone. Brake shoes and other things can fly off. You can get rear-ended and pushed into the moving consist if you're too close, and the crew will never know unless they hit you directly with the lead locomotive. Or if something breaks, the train consist's air supply and throws it into emergency. The crew can only see what's in front of them, and only so far behind them. Give them room. Even though at times it looks like they're going slow, there's thousands of tons of kinetic energy that doesn't just instantly stop. Story 19. Going to include very few details because I don't want to ever deal with him finding this post. I have a friend who is the most loving and gentle father to his kids that he could be. Pure love for his family ever since he became a parent. All the kids are very young. One of them was maybe 3, and like toddlers they tend to explore and go wherever they can. One of those simple activities we all do every day without thinking about it. One day in the morning, ready to go to work, he backs his car out of the garage, stops in the driveway because he forgot something inside. In between those slight hectic moments of being late, going in and out of a door, his 3-year-old wanders out into the garage and just outside. My friend returned to the car, puts it in reverse ready to hurry to work like any other day, and bumps into his child who just happens to be in a blind spot near the corner of the bumper. He was only going maybe 3-4 mph, but for a child's head, that's all it takes to create severe trauma that became a brain bleed situation, and he passed a couple hours later in the hospital. This is a man who has lived life the right way and helped people every chance I've ever known. But this world is just an absolutely harsh, random bitch. Story 20. I'm strictly speaking for South Korea, but dropping objects like rocks off buildings. Nowadays, children are spending all their time in cram schools to even learn an ounce of common sense. Not to mention, so many parents are pretty hands-off with their kids when they are around. Last year, a kid threw rocks out of his apartment window and accidentally killed an old man. However, since juvenile laws are virtually non-existent in Korea, no one was held accountable, not even the parents. It's why some Korean people will say that if you want to get away with murder, ask a minor to do it, and no one is culpable. Story 21. More well-known now, but strep can easily kill you if not taken care of. I had a friend in high school who didn't really have their parents around or anyone looking after them. We had just graduated and they got diagnosed with mono, but it seemed to linger. They were in a bad place, honestly, and there was talk of drugs, but in reality, it was just undiagnosed, untreated strep. They found her passed out on the bathroom floor. She had gone over to her dad's house to talk because she was having a bad night, and I don't think they ever even connected. He found her body. I think about her all the time. She would be 30 soon, but instead, she's forever 18. Ida, I never thought so many people would read this, and I wanted to say thank you for helping me remember my friend today. I grew up prone to steep, and since my dad was in remission from kidney cancer, most of my childhood, it had to be taken extremely seriously. I remember one time I actually got strep, then bronchitis, and then laryngitis back to back to back. I was out of school for over a month and on an inhaler. It was not fun. I also just want to add, rest in peace, Margot. Whenever I hear Soko Amaretto Lime by Brand New, I think about her. She was the one friend people always used to compare me to. We both ran hot temper-wise, and when she passed away, we were actually in the middle of a silly fight. I never got to say sorry. Never be afraid to stick your neck out for your friends. Apologize first. You just never ducking no. Story 22. Lollipops. When I was in first grade, me and my siblings and cousins were messing around in my room. I was jumping up and down my bed with them with a lollipop in my mouth. Seconds after jumping and roughhousing, the candy suddenly dislodged from the stick. The lollipop wasn't even halfway melted. I just opened it about 10 seconds prior to it being dislodged from the stick, so it was impossible to swallow. I quickly jumped out of bed in panic. They all started laughing because they thought I was making a funny face until one of them realized I was choking. Luckily, my younger sister caught on quickly, went out and ran after my mother, who was one shoe away from going out of the house for work. My mother rushed in and tried to make me gag by fishing the candy out from my mouth, but it was too deep. So she performed a Heimlich instead, which caused the candy to pop out. 5. Your old me would have died that day if my 4-year-old sister didn't realize I was choking and was minutes late into getting my mother. Story 23. Riding a horse with no helmet. Concussions are no joke and will kill you. The amount of times that I see TikTok vids of kids and teens racing around on horses is horrific, especially among Western riders. A cowboy hat will not protect your brain. Honestly, horses in general will kill you if you aren't careful. A well-placed kick to the face while picking out hind hooves is no joke. I've had a few near misses. Story 24. Not sure if this counts. I remember someone saying if you need to verify if a wire has voltage running through it, to touch it with the back of your hand instead of the front, so your hand doesn't clamp down on it. Please, for the love of Story 25. Not trying to be a wise ass here, but I'm honestly surprised it isn't more commonly known. A hard enough hit to the testicles can actually kill somebody. My friends and I weren't the smartest teenagers. A lot of the time, we were jackass before. It was even a thing. My friend Jay, we used to greet his buddy Anthony by running up to him like he was going to give him a hug and give him a full force knee to the nads once he got his hands on his shoulders. Anthony wasn't much better because he was known for sneaking up on you and giving you an atomic wedgie just out of boredom. One day, Jay was waiting at the bus stop with me, and Anthony saw us from across the street, figured he'd pull a page out of Jay's book. He turned around just as Anthony got his hands on his shoulders and delivered the blow. The next thing we know, he's on the ground throwing up and borderline seizing. We would find out later on Anthony had ruptured one of Jay's testicles. Jay's mom was not too pleased with Anthony, but at the same time made it so the only time Anthony could hang out with Jay was if she was there to supervise them. But we would find out from her that yes, he did in fact have a seizure due to the pain of the rupture. And it took him almost a year to fully recover. Male bonding was restricted to pretty much noogies and yo mama jokes from that point forward. Story 26. If you work in a job that requires some form of personal protective equipment, PPE, always wear it. I work in the water treatment industry. Also, a very tall guy. I've been told this story as I don't remember as I took an epileptic seizure. Walking across a steel walkway, 5-meter tanks of water either side of me. Walking down and arriving at a 16-step stairway, I collapsed. Smashed my head, that hard off a handrail, I cracked my hard hat. It came flying off, and I smashed my head off the floor. As I bled heavily for 20 lemons into water tanks that were just about to be distributed into the public water supply, an ambulance arrived. Paramedic arrived and seen my hard hat. In the ambulance for about 15 minutes, I seized another 4 times. When I arrived at hospital, I got 9 staples in my head. As I was leaving, the same paramedic met me at the door. He said I fell that hard. If I wasn't wearing my hard hat, I could have very easily killed myself since I was capable of cracking it. Any type of job you're in, even if it's wearing gloves, always wear your PPE. Story 27. Microwaves. Not saying cooking food with it is dangerous because that's not true, but messing with the electronics is very dangerous. Microwave ovens store thousands of volts of electricity inside them, and the charge can last a long time even unplugged. Someone who doesn't know what they are doing trying to fix a microwave can easily get electrocuted. I was thinking of this. The others say, when I walked past a microwave at the curb for trash pickup, and I thought of those people who take trash items like that to fix and sell and how dangerous it is to do. Story 28. Going into a cave, there is a video out there, probably more than one, that explains it, and I don't remember the details, but it has to do with gases that can get trapped in caves, or maybe lack of oxygen. Either way, the way they showed the problem is they took a lit torch, stuck it in the opening of the cave, and the flame immediately extinguished. Story 29. If you're from a rich country and visiting a poor one, absolutely anything. That cute puppy could be rabid. That mixed drink at a resort could be made with methanol. That sidewalk or street could have random holes in it. People in Vietnam sometimes steal manhole covers for scrap. That hotel has no fire escape. That skin cream could have anything in it or nothing. And that cop has no obligation to read you your rights. Story 30. Hydrogen sulfide. H2s. Inhalation of high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide can produce extremely rapid unconsciousness and death. I've ran across it in a few confined spaces. The first breath smelled like sewage. Then the smell isn't so bad. It kills the senses. You can pass out pretty quick. The gas settles so you breathe it in more close to the ground. Then you dead. Story 31. The well, I don't want to bother anyone. I can handle things myself mentality. My great-uncle dropped dead in a bathroom on his last day at work during a retirement celebration lunch with his boss. He started to choke and thought he would excuse himself to handle it and not make a fuss. Choked to death on a chunk of steak in the bathroom, by the time he was found, it was too late. Story 32. Swimming. I was a lifeguard at a public pool for many summers when I was younger. I had to save numerous people over the years. Too many people underestimate the danger of water. Too many parents let kids who have no idea how to swim jump into pools. Too many people rely on lifeguards to save them and assume that we can see everything at all times. Emo. Everyone should know basic swimming. It's a safety thing and an important life skill. Story 33. Beer bong in high school. I worked at a hardware store down the street from a university campus. It was common for students to come in and get supplies for beer bongs on the weekend. One guy came in and made one 2 stories tall to increase pressure and flow. 2 problems. 1. One student died from drowning with beer in their lungs. 2. Multiple were admitted to the hospital with alcohol poisoning from too much beer being delivered in too little time. Story 34. Any type of aerosol can in a vehicle, especially during the warmer months. A can of dry shampoo combusted in my car once. We were all sitting just outside of it, and it sounded like a bomb going off. I was in the front seat doing my makeup just moments before. Metal shrapnel went everywhere, and it completely shattered the front windshield. Thank you all for watching. Watch even more great stories on my channel.